Welcome to Shadow Warefare. This channel exists for one reason: to expose what hides in plain sight. Not the things you were warned about in movies, not the obvious darkness people like to talk about, but the quiet, unseen battles happening in ordinary homes, at ordinary hours, while most people are asleep and unaware. Shadow Warefare is where spiritual ignorance ends and awareness begins. Here, we don't sensationalize fear, we expose patterns. We don't chase superstition, we reveal systems. And we don't speak from imagination, we speak from experience, testimony, and revelation. Tonight's message is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to explain something you may have already experienced but never understood. If you have ever been asleep and suddenly woken up by your dog barking uncontrollably at around 3 in the morning, if you have ever watched your dog growl at an empty corner of the room, if you have ever seen your dog stare at a hallway door, or the ceiling as if something invisible was standing there, and if you brushed it off, laughed it away, or told yourself it's just an animal, this message is for you. Because what I am about to share is not theory. It is not folklore. It is not superstition. It is something I learned from the other side, before I left it. I was once trained to understand how the unseen world moves through physical spaces. I learned how spirits observe houses, how they enter, how they linger, and most importantly, how they are detected. And one of the things we feared the most were not pastors, not loud prayers, not church buildings. It was animals, especially dogs, because animals do not reason away what they see. They do not reinterpret the unseen to feel safe. They do not explain darkness using logic. When they perceive something, they react immediately. Let me ask you something and answer honestly in your spirit. Why does the barking almost always happen at 3 in the morning? Not midnight, not dawn, not random hours. 3, people joke about it. They call it coincidence. Some even mock it as internet superstition. But no one who has truly operated in the unseen realm laughs at that hour. Because 3 in the morning is not just a time. It is a shift. It is a window. It is a moment when certain boundaries are thinner, when spiritual movement is more active, and when patrols, yes, patrols, are carried out. Dogs are not barking because they are bored. They are not barking because they heard a noise. They are reacting because something entered their environment that does not belong to the natural order. Here is something most people don't know. Dogs see layers of reality humans are locked out of. Their vision spectrum is wider, their hearing range is deeper. But beyond biology, animals were never meant to dominate the earth. Humans were. That means animals were not burdened with the same spiritual filters placed on mankind after the fall. They perceive without authority, but they do perceive, and demons know this. That's why when an unclean presence enters a house, it does not rush toward humans first. It observes, it measures, it watches patterns. It watches who is asleep, who is spiritually alert, who is praying, who is compromised, and the dog sees it. When your dog barks at an empty hallway, it is not barking at a nothing. It is responding to movement without flesh, presence without weight, form without matter. And here's the unsettling part. Your dog is not barking because the entity is attacking. It's barking because the entity is standing still. There is a reason the house feels different after that barking stops. A heaviness, a silence that feels wrong, a sense that something passed through and left a residue behind. That is not imagination, that is spiritual disturbance. In the world I came from, we knew this. When a dog reacted aggressively at night, it meant one of 2 things. Either the house was already marked, or something was checking whether it could be. Spirits do not wander randomly. They are assigned, dispatched, and released through permissions, spoken or unspoken. Emotional doors, objects, patterns, trauma, sin, altars people don't even know they built. 3 in the morning is when surveillance happens. Not possession, not manifestation, observation. Your dog barking is not the danger. It is the warning, and most people silence the warning. They shout at the dog. They lock it outside. They laugh nervously. They scroll their phone until sleep returns. And the thing that caused the reaction remains. Let me slow this down because this part matters. Demons do not look like what movies show you. They do not float around with horns and red eyes. They appear as distortions, shadows that don't match the light, shapes that absorb the darkness around them, outlines that flicker when noticed. Dogs don't see a monster. They see an intruder in a space that should be empty. That's why dogs often bark at corners, ceilings, door frames, staircases, mirrors, and hallways. Those are passage points. And yes, mirrors matter more than people think, but that comes later. Right now, understand this. If your dog is reacting consistently at the same hour, in the same location, something is revisiting your space. Spirits return where they are tolerated. They revisit where doors remain open. And here is something that may unsettle you even more. The entity your dog sees may not have come for you. It may have come through you. Through something you brought into the house. Through something you watched. Through something you spoke. Through something you agreed with emotionally. Darkness doesn't always enter with noise. Sometimes it enters with familiarity. And dogs hate familiarity that doesn't belong. That's why they growl instead of bark sometimes. That low, sustained growl is recognition without clarity. The animal senses something it cannot identify but knows is wrong. If you've ever noticed your dog refuse to enter a specific room after an episode like this, pay attention. Animals avoid contaminated spaces. Humans decorate them. Tonight, I am not asking you to panic. I am asking you to observe. Think back. When did the barking start? What changed in your house around that time? What entered your life? Emotionally, spiritually, physically. Nothing manifests without permission, and the most dangerous permissions are the ones given unknowingly. In the next part, I will explain why 3 in the morning is chosen, what kind of entities are most commonly seen by animals at that hour, and how they determine whether a house is safe for them or hostile. And more importantly, I will explain what makes them leave without confrontation. Because trust me, there are ways to make a house unbearable to the unseen. 3 in the morning is not chosen by chance. It is the hour of transition, the edge of spiritual tension, the moment when the human mind is least alert but the soul is most vulnerable. It is a liminal hour, where boundaries blur between the physical and the spiritual, between the seen and the unseen. Those who have studied the patterns know this hour is when spirits, both assigned and roaming, conduct reconnaissance. They check, observe, and test the resistance of a home. And make no mistake, these are highly organized entities. There is strategy in their movement, precision in their timing, and intelligence in their choice of target. Dogs sense this. Their barking is not random or impulsive. It is an instinctive alarm, a spiritual sensor going off. The animal is detecting not just the presence of an entity, but its intent. Some are passive, merely observing. Others are aggressive, waiting for a weakness to exploit, and your dog can tell the difference. This is why a dog may bark furiously for minutes at a corner or a staircase, then suddenly stop as if the threat vanished. Because in that moment, the entity determines you are not its target, at least not yet. But the entity is still present. It has not left. It lingers in corners, above ceilings, behind furniture, sometimes in plain sight of humans who cannot perceive it. These presences feed on the space between human attention and ignorance. They are drawn to vulnerability, to confusion, to fear, and, most importantly, to permission. Permission comes in many forms, subtle and invisible. It can be a lingering resentment, a curse unknowingly spoken, a habit of harboring darkness in your thoughts or your home. It can even be a careless object brought from outside, a gift, a second-hand item, a decorative piece that carries more than just aesthetic energy. Every object can act as a door. Every emotional weakness can act as a door. And once that door is open, even partially, entities can enter to test, observe, and in some cases, manipulate. Dogs do not understand human logic, but they recognize spiritual intrusion immediately. They growl, bark, and sometimes refuse to enter certain spaces. And this is their warning, one that too many humans ignore. They may pat the dog, laugh at it, or scold it for what seems like irrational behavior. In doing so, they silence their most sensitive spiritual alarm system. They risk allowing the entity to operate freely, unnoticed. Many people think darkness comes through violent or obvious means. They expect loud manifestations, moving objects, or shadowy figures. But the majority of spiritual interference begins quietly, subtly, and methodically. Entities are patient. They work in layers. They do not need immediate confrontation. They need observation, testing, and access. And this is why dogs are crucial. They see the layer humans cannot. When a dog barks at 3 in the morning, it is detecting specific entities that operate in that time frame. These are not random demons. They are assigned, specialized, and aware. Some are messengers sent to monitor and report. Others are disruptors seeking to influence the sleep, peace, and energy of the household. Some even target emotional states, feeding on anger, anxiety, or fear that has been unwittingly invited into the home, and the dog recognizes each type differently. The low growl, the high-pitched bark, the sudden pacing, the refusal to enter a room, these are all communication signals. Your dog is telling you, without words, what is happening in your spiritual environment. The entities themselves are cunning. They are aware that humans have learned certain defenses, prayers, rituals, and protections. That is why they often avoid confrontation. They prefer to remain unseen while they test boundaries, waiting for doors to open further. They study household routines, they watch sleeping patterns. They notice when people leave lights on or off, when prayers are spoken or neglected, when anger or resentment fills a room. And your dog is watching along with them, reacting, interpreting, warning. It is important to understand that not all spirits in your home are there to harm you. Some are opportunists, others are observers. Some are remnants of energy left behind by past actions, trauma, or unresolved conflicts. But the presence of any uninvited spiritual force, even neutral or passive, changes the atmosphere. It affects sleep, mood, and perception. And your dog's instincts are sensitive to these shifts. Now let's address the human response, which is often the most dangerous. Most people either ignore or misinterpret the warning. They distract themselves with television, scrolling on their phones, or checking emails. They rationalize the barking, calling it coincidence, imagination, or an overactive animal. In doing so, they grant the entity more freedom. Silence or inaction is permission in spiritual warfare. Every moment you ignore the alert, every time you dismiss the alarm, the unseen gains subtle foothold. But there is a method to respond, a way to restore boundaries without panic. The first step is acknowledgement. Recognize that the barking is not random, that it is a signal, a message. Observe the location, the duration, and the behavior. Is it at the same time each night? Does it center on one room, hallway, or object? Patterns matter. Patterns reveal the strategy of the entity. The second step is preparation. A calm mind and a centered spirit are critical. Animals react to energy, not just presence. If your energy is fearful or scattered, your dog will sense it and escalate its reaction. If you approach with calm authority, prayer, or spiritual focus, the dog will respond with confidence and the entity will detect resistance. The difference between fear and authority is crucial. Third, spiritual boundaries must be restored. There are prayers, declarations, and rituals that create lines unseen by the naked eye but recognized by the spiritual realm. These boundaries do not rely on noise, shouting, or dramatic gestures. They work quietly, consistently, and with authority. The dog senses the shift immediately. A calm, purposeful energy combined with spiritual decree signals to both the animal and the entity that the space is no longer accessible. Finally, ongoing vigilance is necessary. Entities that revisit or test a household do not give up after a single encounter. They measure, record, and return when conditions are favorable. Your dog continues to act as the sentinel, alerting you each time there is activity. Your role is to observe, reinforce boundaries, and maintain spiritual cleanliness in the home through prayer, ritual, or intentional practices that remove permission for intrusion. This is not theory. This is not superstition. This is observed, tested, and verified through countless experiences. Ignoring your dog's warning at 3 a.m. is not ignoring an animal. It is ignoring your home's spiritual security system, and those who ignore it often face disruption, unrest, and unseen attacks that escalate over time. The entities are intelligent. They adapt. They exploit ignorance, confusion, and doubt, but they cannot withstand consistent, aware, and calm authority in the home. And dogs, in their instinctive perception, act as allies in this unseen battle. Their reactions are a guide, a map, and a warning system. Treat them as such and you maintain peace. Dismiss them and you invite testing. If you've ever wondered why certain rooms feel heavy, why sleep is disrupted, or why anxiety seems to appear without reason, the answer is often in the patterns your dog is warning you about. Those patterns are the footprints of unseen watchers, intruders, and opportunistic spirits. And understanding those patterns is the first step toward regaining control of your space. There are patterns to what dogs react to, and those patterns reveal the nature of the entity. Not every spirit is the same. Some are dark, hungry, and seeking opportunity. Others are subtle, shadowy, and patient. And some are cunning, sent specifically to observe your family, your routines, and your spiritual defenses. One type is what I call the watchers. They do not move objects. They do not scream. They stand or linger in corners, near ceilings, behind doors. Your dog may bark at them repeatedly, then suddenly stop, as if the watcher has shifted its attention or recognized that you see it. Watchers are assigned to observe weakness. They note patterns of prayer, conflict, neglect, and open doors, literal and spiritual. They are patient. They know humans often dismiss warnings, and dogs sense their presence immediately. Another type is the disruptors. These entities feed on disruption, tension, and emotional imbalance. They often arrive silently, exploiting open doors created by unresolved anger, envy, or grief. When a dog growls low and refuses to enter a room, it is detecting energy that does not align with natural order. Disruptors thrive where boundaries are weak. They are methodical, testing sleep cycles, provoking subtle anxiety, and amplifying emotional chaos. They rarely reveal themselves fully because their power is in manipulation, not confrontation. Then there are the markers. These are entities that mark a space, laying down subtle spiritual residue. They often arrive through objects, gifts, or even media, books, pictures, music, anything with a trace of energy attached to it. Your dog senses these markers immediately, reacting with barking or pacing, because the marker carries a signal invisible to humans. Markers are silent, invisible, but persistent. Their presence is confirmed only through patterns. A sudden chill in a room, disrupted sleep, or tension that appears without cause. Finally, there are the intruders. Rare, dangerous, and highly targeted, these are entities seeking access to humans for direct influence or harm. Your dog's reaction is intense, barking, growling, running to the source. Intruders are aggressive only when permission exists, even partially. They measure the home, gauge your spiritual defenses, and retreat if they sense resistance. But if ignored, they will return, testing, probing, and escalating. Dogs, in their instinctive perception, act as a real-time alarm system. They detect the subtle shifts that humans cannot perceive, and the entities themselves respect that perception. That's why so many animals refuse to enter certain areas. That's why a dog will growl, bark, pace, or stare endlessly. It is signaling an invasion point, a weakness, or a violation of natural order. Now, what allows these entities to enter in the first place? They exploit what I call spiritual doors. These are vulnerabilities humans create, knowingly or unknowingly, that allow access to the unseen. They are not always physical. Some are emotional, some are behavioral, some are tied to objects, spaces, or even conversation. Understanding these doors is crucial, because closing them removes permission for intrusion. One common door is unresolved anger or resentment. When humans carry grudges, speak curses in anger, or even harbor quiet bitterness, they emit energy that draws attention. Entities are attracted to these signals. Dogs sense this energy immediately, reacting to its vibration rather than sight. Another is neglect of spiritual discipline. Homes where prayer, spiritual cleanliness, and routine vigilance are absent become easy targets. Dogs sense the absence of protective energy as clearly as they sense the presence of intrusion. Objects are a third door. Gifts, second-hand items, or even sentimental possessions can carry energy. A seemingly innocent decorative piece may have been a conduit for spiritual access. A dog's reaction to a new object, staring, barking, pacing, is rarely random. They are detecting foreign energy attached to a physical form. Physical spaces can also act as doors. Certain corners, closets, attics, basements, and even mirrors can accumulate unseen energy. Dogs often react to these points. Their behavior is a guide, a map of the areas that require attention, cleansing, or spiritual protection. Finally, emotional states create doors. Fear, anxiety, doubt, or despair broadcast an invitation that entities recognize. Dogs are sensitive to the vibration of these states, often responding before the human even notices the shift. The important lesson here is this: your dog's reactions are a warning, a map, and a tool. Ignoring them is dangerous. Observing them is the first step in reclaiming authority over your home. The entities test, probe, and retreat based on perception. Calm, consistent, and aware human authority repels them. Panic, fear, and ignorance amplify their freedom. In the next section, I will teach exactly how to interpret your dog's behavior, how to identify the type of entity present, and the spiritual protocols that will shut doors permanently. This is not superstition. This is applied knowledge from the unseen realm. Pay close attention. Every behavior your dog exhibits at 3 in the morning is a message, a coded signal you must learn to read. Barking, growling, pacing, refusing to enter a room, staring at corners or ceilings, all of it is information. And ignoring it is the first mistake people make. The first step in interpretation is observation. Watch patterns over multiple nights. Is the barking consistent at the same hour? Does it focus on one room, one hallway, one object? Dogs are patient. Their persistence reflects the presence of a recurring entity. The intensity of the reaction matters as well. A low growl suggests observation. Sustained barking indicates the entity is testing boundaries. Running in circles or pacing suggests agitation caused by the spiritual presence. Every nuance communicates something about the type, purpose, and persistence of the entity. Next, match the behavior to the type of entity. If the dog is barking at nothing, in a calm but firm manner, it is most likely a watcher, an observer, taking note of your spiritual defenses. These watchers are assessing, not attacking, and the calm, deliberate bark reflects recognition without threat. If the dog is growling low and refuses to enter a space, it is likely a disruptor, sensing energy that is out of alignment. Disruptors seek to manipulate sleep, mood, or emotions, and their patience is their power. If the dog barks furiously with teeth visible, hackles raised, running along walls, it may indicate an intruder, an entity sent to probe, mark, or attack. Finally, if the dog fixates on an object, staring, sniffing, growling, this is often a marker, an item that carries residual energy. Once the behavior is understood, action is required. Silence, scolding, or ignoring the dog is the exact opposite of what must be done. Calm authority must be established. Begin by speaking aloud, softly but firmly, affirming the boundaries of your home. Use prayer, spiritual declarations, or protective words according to your faith or belief system. The goal is not to shout, not to panic, but to declare control. The dog immediately senses this change in energy. The entity reacts too. Physical cleansing of spaces is also critical. Corners, attics, basements, closets, and even mirrors may accumulate negative energy. Walk the rooms, affirm authority, and if necessary, use blessed objects, oils, incense, or water according to your spiritual practice. Objects that are suspected of carrying residual energy, gifts, second-hand items, or items that seem to provoke a reaction from the dog, should be removed, cleansed, or prayed over. The dog will respond, often calming as the space becomes purified and boundaries restored. Spiritual doors must be closed permanently. Unresolved anger, resentment, and fear must be addressed, forgiven, or released. Emotional clutter acts as a doorway for unseen entities. Routine spiritual discipline, prayer, meditation, intentional focus strengthens the natural defenses of your home and your family. Entities respect consistent, calm, authoritative presence. Fear, doubt, and neglect invite testing. Authority, clarity, and spiritual vigilance repel intrusion. Another critical point, consistency matters. Entities do not retreat permanently after one encounter. They return to test, probe, and assess boundaries. Daily or nightly vigilance reinforces authority. Pay attention to recurring patterns in your dog's behavior. A dog that becomes calm and relaxed in areas previously haunted signals that boundaries are being restored. If the dog remains reactive, it indicates persistent access or incomplete closure. Lastly, your dog is an ally, not a nuisance. Their instincts are sharper than human perception. They see layers humans cannot. They feel energy vibrations that go unnoticed. Their behavior is guidance, warning, and protection all at once. Treat their reactions as important intelligence. Observe, interpret, silence them at your own peril. By understanding the patterns, interpreting behavior, and implementing spiritual protocols, you can reclaim authority over your home. You can protect your family, maintain peace, and prevent unwanted entities from entering or lingering. The presence of your dog is not just companionship. It is an active, instinctive guardian in the unseen realm. If you have ever been frustrated or fearful when your dog barked at 3 in the morning, understand now, it was not irrational. It was not random. It was a warning, a guide pointing to the unseen reality in your home. By acknowledging it, respecting it, and acting with calm authority, you shift the balance from vulnerability to control. You restore order to your home, you protect your family, and most importantly, you honor the intelligence and spiritual perception your dog provides, giving them the authority they naturally possess. This is not superstition. This is applied, observable, and actionable knowledge. This is shadow warfare. This is where knowledge becomes action. Observing your dog is one thing. Understanding the entities is another. But restoring authority, closing doors, and reclaiming peace in your home, that is the final decisive step. First, declare boundaries clearly and deliberate. Walk your home at 3 in the morning if possible, or during any time of tension. Speak aloud, calmly but firmly, claiming every corner, every hallway, every door, and every room. Say words of authority according to your spiritual understanding. Declare that no uninvited presence may enter, linger, or influence your household. The words themselves carry weight. The dog senses your authority immediately. The entity recognizes your control. Second, cleanse your environment consistently. Use water, blessed oils, incense, or any purification method aligned with your faith. Walk slowly, affirming control over each space. Pay attention to reactions. Your dog will guide you. Areas that provoke repeated barking or growling require special attention. Remove objects that act as markers. Neutralize emotional and spiritual residue left by anger, fear, or unresolved conflict. The goal is not dramatics. It is restoration of order. Third, reinforce spiritual discipline daily. This is your most powerful shield. Routine prayer, meditation, declarations of authority, and intentional focus on truth and protection establish a barrier invisible to human eyes, but recognized in the unseen realm. Entities test houses where discipline is neglected. Authority is recognized where practice is consistent. Your dog will respond positively to spaces fortified with presence and protection, barking less, pacing less, remaining calm, signaling that the environment is secure. Fourth, maintain vigilance. This is not a one-time effort. Entities return, test, probe, and exploit gaps. Observe your dog nightly. Notice patterns. Recognize signs of returning intruders, watchers, disruptors, or markers. Your response must remain calm, deliberate, and authoritative. Over time, repeated vigilance establishes a permanent imbalance against intrusion. The entities recognize that your household is no longer an easy target. Fifth, protect your emotional and mental state. Fear, anxiety, and doubt are doors. Recognize them. Resolve internal conflicts. Entities exploit emotional weakness first, then physical space. A calm, focused mind projects authority in a way that dogs understand and entities fear. Finally, honor your dog. Their perception is your advantage. They are not mere animals. They are spiritual sentinels, equipped with instincts that far surpass human awareness. Respect their warnings. Observe, interpret, and act. Their behavior is a map to unseen activity, a guide to doors you cannot perceive, and a warning system that can save you from escalation. Remember this: the entities you do not see are not invincible. They operate within rules, boundaries, and limitations. They test, but they cannot withstand authority. Calm, deliberate, consistent spiritual authority closes doors permanently. Your home becomes a fortress not of walls or locks, but of vigilance, discipline, and awareness. Your dog is your first line of defense, your guide in the unseen realm. So the next time your dog barks at 3 in the morning, do not ignore it. Do not scold it. Observe. Listen. Interpret, act, walk your home, declare authority, cleanse the space, and reinforce spiritual discipline. Your dog will respond with calmness, your home will respond with peace, and the entities will be forced to retreat, unable to influence, unable to linger, unable to threaten. You now know what others dismiss as coincidence. You now understand the unseen logic of the spiritual realm. You now have the knowledge to reclaim authority over your home, your family, and your environment. Shadow warfare is not about fear. It is about awareness, strategy, and action. The unseen can no longer operate unchecked. Your dog is not just a companion. It is your partner in this warfare. And when peace returns, when the barking ceases, when your home feels light again, remember this: it is not luck. It is vigilance. It is discipline. It is authority. And it is the recognition that the unseen world is real, but it is not beyond control. Shadow warfare has revealed the truth tonight. The knowledge has been given. The path is clear. Observe your dog, protect your home, Close the doors and reclaim the authority that has always belonged to you. Your household is sacred. Your vigilance is necessary, and your dog is watching alongside you, guarding, warning, and guiding. Respect it. Learn from it. Act with calm authority. This is the unseen revealed. This is shadow warfare.